Ladies and gentlemen, let's read the GameInTech.com video. We are going to be discussing free-to-play games. Now, right now, the Office of Fair Trading are doing an investigation of whether it believes that the titles, the free-to-play games, are actually within the law. And indeed, it says that the regulator is preparing to take enforcement action if games breach the fairness standards. It's basically trying to determine, I quote, whether free-to-play games are misleading, commercially aggressive, or otherwise unfair. And as a part of this investigation, the OFT, which is the Office of Fair Trading, has written to companies offering free web or app-based games seeking information on in-game marketing to children. End quote. Now, to be honest with you, free-to-play games have been around for a while now, especially on the cell phones. But this is being sparked a lot by the fact that, at least in the UK, and from what I'm reading as well in the United States, children and people in general are racking up absolutely huge bills on these free-to-play games. And microtransactions in general are very much like this. You can basically buy your way to better power-ups, better abilities, or to be able to unlock more levels or what have you. I'll give you yet another quote. In particular, the OFT is looking into whether these games include direct extortions to children, a strong encouragement to make a purchase or to do something that would necessitate making a purchase, or to persuade their parents or other adults into making a purchase for them. This business model, and this is off quote, has been around for a while now, as I've said earlier. But I think the problem is that some titles are just plain almost unwinnable unless you start to cough up dough. Certain games, for example, let's say on the cell phone, either Temple Run 1 or 2, you can spend your own money to basically unlock the game or to be able to effectively go on for longer and others run faster and get a better score than someone who isn't. Now you can, if you're so willing to do so, keep playing the game and unlock this stuff, naturally. However, some games are not that generous. I believe it was Contract Killer Zombies that I was playing just a while ago, 6 months ago or so. And I just downloaded the game pretty much for something to play while I was on the train or what have you. And I managed to get a certain distance into the game, but it became more and more obvious that if I wanted to progress, I could either basically grind my heart out, or I could effectively cough up a certain amount of real-life money to do so. And in some cases, judging from what others have been saying as well in their reviews, they deemed those purchases to be very expensive. I certainly wasn't going to pay money for what is effectively a game that I was playing for 5 minutes or whatever at a time. And since then, they obviously have taken some of these criticisms under consideration from their customers, and they have actually lowered the difficulty somewhat, apparently, of their missions. Even Electronic Arts are somewhat getting into this habit. Real Racing 3, which has been released on the iOS devices, has very much the same kind of idea behind it, that you can do these microtransactions to purchase bits and pieces, and they have said that the people who are annoyed by this are, I quote, a vocal minority. So what if the Office of Fair Trading actually find this to be a problem? In other words, they do say that they come up to the conclusion, say that that these companies are not acting fairly. Well, it would basically find that if a company did find a free-to-play game in breach of its trading standards, the publisher would be asked to remove those elements from the game. In other words, the unfair elements that the Office of Fair Trading find. It also said that that would be the Office of Fair Trading, has the power to take these games companies to court if they actually ignore those further requests. Now, I know what you're going to say. What about if you are not in the UK? What about if you're from, say, Canada or the United States, or, it doesn't really matter? Well, apparently the OFT, which obviously is a UK kind of body, is actually speaking to international regulators right now, because parents and customer groups are actually very unhappy with this, and they're actually encouraging the behavior of the OFT, because they believe that this is inherently unfair. Now, to be honest with you, there are a number of issues right now in the media surrounding games, and to be honest with you, it's a pretty big topic, and I'll probably address this more in a separate video because I don't want to take this one too heavily off topic. But suffice to say, one of the big issues right now are microtransactions in general, and people don't generally mind paying for DLC. For example, Mass Effect. I know I've used this example a couple of times if anyone's a regular viewer, but I don't have a problem paying money to, Kasumi's stolen memory. I have absolutely no issue with it. I similarly have no issue for, say, some of the Call of Duty stuff or what have you, because I consider that to be substantial. I don't need it, it's not a prerequisite, I don't require it to basically complete the game, but if I want to cough up more cash, I can do so, and I can enjoy the game further. On the other hand, microtransactions, a la EA's Dead Space, which EA are saying that it believes that microtransactions are what customers want, and that, customers are happy with them. Are we hell? Is what it comes down to. I don't actually know anyone. Maybe you guys do. I don't know. But I've spoken to, dozens of people about this. I've spoken to gamers. I've spoken to just casual gamers. I've read forums and message boards, and the best response I've gotten from EA in terms of, like, the average person said, well, I don't have to buy them. No one's actually said, I absolutely love this idea, I can basically buy my way through the game. To be honest with you, here's my arguments against this. Why? Just why would you do it? It's like you're buying the game to then effectively cheat your way into getting more ammo. I remember back in the day we used to have to type up, down, left, right, A, B, C, start. In other words, that would give us infinite ammo. Now we actually have to pay our hard-earned cash to be able to, make guns in the game. And I can understand it if a title like, for example, Dead Space, let's say, for example, they were to re-release Dead Space 3 as a completely free-to-play game, or a certain percentage of it, or Dead Space 1, whatever, and they were to make that game free-to-play, and let's say certain weapons were only unlockable via cash. And this is how some MMOs do it. For example, Age of Conan, or what have you. They will lock down certain quests, or they will lock down certain PvP groups, or certain classes of characters that, you only be able to access if you pay money. And I have no problem with that idea. At the end of the day, I'm playing a game for free. If I so wish to pay a certain fee, then I can do so, and I can get those characters or those dungeons or whatever added. It's that simple. Similarly, if I'm paying a monthly fee, however, I expect all of that stuff as a given. Certain things maybe I could be somewhat lenient on, for example, character transfers. But in the case of, let's say, Dead Space, I'm paying money. I want to be able to access all of that game's content. But in the case of a title that is aimed on the cell phone, I think it's actually substantially worse. Because, okay, you can argue that as an adult, we have our will. In other words, we know what we're doing. But the argument is predominantly aimed at young kids. In other words, they will effectively start charging money to the cell phone or spending a lot of their cash because, they enjoy the game and they don't realize they are being ripped off. You do stupid things when you're young, it's that simple. And even as an adult, it's, I don't think, fair that there are certain games where you just simply cannot progress any further. Why do they do that? It's because they want you to become, I wouldn't say addicted, but they want you to have an investment, a time investment in that game. It's that simple. Let's say you've sunk, let's say combined 2 hours into a game, 3 hours into a game, and then you see that, you know what, this is really irritating me. I cannot go any further than this because the game effectively is too steep. It I need double this ammo, and I could grind it, or I could maybe do this or that. But I'm going to be here for another 6 hours or whatever trying to get this, and I've gotten to the point where I just want to go further into the game. Maybe I should just drop a couple of bucks on it. It's only $2. What's $2 or £2 or whatever your currency is? Might as well do it. And then you subsequently get further into the game, and then the same thing happens. Let's say you get another 3 hours into the game, and you say, it's only, $2 for what? 3 hours of entertainment? But the thing is, this keeps going. So in other words, the title becomes more and more expensive. And the reason you're willing to pay this is because you have invested the time. This is very similar, by the way, to how MMOs work. One of the reasons that people don't want to quit games like World of Warcraft, and I'm actually one of those people who actually quit WoW. Not that I don't like WoW still, I just kind of got bored of it, especially since a lot of the players that I know no longer play. But one of the things that kept me going was the fact that I spent so much time on my account. And certainly other people I know the same thing. They just said, you know what, we've got 2 free characters at level 80, which was back when I quit, which was Wrath of the Lich King, very late Wrath of the Lich King. I basically quit just as Cataclysm hit, just so you know. But I've got a couple of characters who are level 80, 85, and I don't really want to quit. I'm just going to keep going forward. And others were playing because of the social aspect. In other words, you know what, my friend Tom and Bill and Harriet are on here, so I'm going to keep playing. And so fair enough, they did, but that's how it basically suckers you in, which isn't exactly an addiction, but I can see where people are coming from on this. And I do agree that companies do need to make money. I'm not on the side of they are evil or they want to make profit. It's that simple. No. I believe that microtransactions should be there. Because, end of the day, you want to play a game for free, but they also need to eat. It's that simple. They cannot pay their bill with your good karma. In other words, they cannot go down to, the local's food market and say, hey, look, I made this game and people are really enjoying the reviews. Look, you can see here. They're going to say, that's nice. Can I actually have cash for your... No, sorry, I'm giving the game for completely free. I have no money. But look, I've got goodwill. That doesn't work in reality. So, in other words, these companies do need to make money, obviously. But I think there has to be a very fine balance. I think that you don't want to get to a point where it's becoming... to the point where basically the OFT or whatever the regulatory body is in your respective country is looking to get involved. Because at the end of the day, all this is going to do is drag your company's name through the mud. Worse, it's actually a bad thing for the model in general. For example, let's talk about a few games that do this well. Let's talk about Team Fortress 2. Team Fortress 2 does things extremely well in this respect. Why? And this is the important reason that I want to really hit home here. And this, in my opinion, you guys may feel completely different, and in which case feel free to comment or message me or whatever. But it's not the intent of the developer, Valve in this case, to punish you if you do not cough up cash. In other words, you do not feel that you are actually at a huge disadvantage because, the other people are basically running around as demigods, and there you are just going up to them, trying to hit them with a toothpick. It's almost like, you're playing as, I don't know, Sean in Third Strike and your friend's playing as Gil and laughing at you. It's not like that. In this case, you can have items and you can either stumble across them or, whatever, earn them in some cases. But if you don't want to do that, if you just want to trick your character out, and people have done this in other games, by the way, Aeon, for example, and various other games, some people really like the whole custom character thing. Other people don't give a rat's ass, other people really do. If you want, however, to do this, if you want to buy the stuff, you can. In other words, Valve say, you're not punished gameplay-wise. You can get the stuff randomly or by earning them or whatever. In fact, some games you actually get these hats or various bits and bobs, just through the purchase of the game. So in other words, you get Team Fortress goodies. However, if you don't want to do that, if you want to just have this stuff right now because you really like this item and you just gosh darn want that item now, you just don't want to wait, then you can pay money for it. It's that simple, and this is a very good philosophy. There are other examples as well, one that I've not personally played, but in my Googling I've come across various who have played it, and that would be what would be known as Tiny Tower. Now this is available on a couple of platforms. Facebook would probably be the most noticeable, or notable should I say, but as well as iOS devices. Now on the iOS, which I don't own, I own an Android, just getting it out there, but the iOS has 9/ out of 10 average score, and this is with 350,000 reviews, so it's not a small amount. The basic premise here is you are building a tower. However, you also need to micromanage the businesses which fill up that tower as well. However, this is done through hours. In other words, you need to accumulate the currency to do so, and this is done through hours. So in other words, not only if you leave the game running, if you close down the game, the game uses the internal clock, or whatever it does, I don't really know, to determine how long it's been since you last played the game. And after you've done that, it figures out how much effectively goodies you've managed to accrue, and then it gives you them, and then you can spend them. On the other hand, if you choose not to do this, if you say, you know what, I just want to play the game now, damn it, you can cough up money. So in other words, you can buy more goodies to play the game for longer. It's pretty simple. Time is literally money in this case. There are other examples as well, but I won't really keep bogging you down, I'm sorry, with them, because I could be here for a while. But that's what I'm saying. Certain companies, for example, Valve, and let me see, who's this made by? Nimblebit, apparently. Apologies. They do it right. They do it fine. They have no problem. Indeed, some games from Electronic Arts are also fine as well. It's not like every single Electronic Arts game is absolutely awful. I'm just merely pointing out one that does annoy me, Dead Space in this case. But honestly, there are developers that, or should I say, producers and so forth, that do take the proverbial piss. And so I think there should be a certain set of rules that have been put in place. It's possible from the various articles that I've been reading upon this that in the end it could actually mean that free-to-play titles are only available to adults. So for example, over 18, so you'd have to provide evidence that you are indeed old enough to play this game, because then obviously you prove yourself to be responsible and therefore it's your cash. Anyway, I could really go on a whole thing on DLC as a whole, but I won't in this particular video because it's already getting fairly lengthy, and I've only really been talking about a fraction of this stuff really that's been going on in gaming that's kind of irritating people right now. I could probably do it as a massive series and I wouldn't even scratch the surface, really. But suffice to say with this, I think it's a big thing, because we don't really want gaming to start getting negative press, especially with parents, because that's just, the worst thing. We also don't want it to start getting negative press in terms of, a game is out but people aren't willing to give it a fair shot because other games like it have been inherently unfair, so therefore the players don't want to do anymore. For example, Tiny Tower, just to use it again, it actually has a lot of people who reviewed this and have given it a high score. That means, in other words, a lot of people have enjoyed this game. Suffice to say, I don't know what the download numbers are. As I said, I can't physically look right now, but it's certainly going to be more than what I've reviewed it. So let's even say that, 5 or 10,000 of those are regularly paying customers. It's a lot better than having a very small customer base that regularly pay. because even though you might not be making so much money from them, because it's not actually so much of a a requirement, people are going to be more willing to trust your games. Therefore, in the long run, you are going to make more money, you are going to be in the business for longer, and you are not going to have a bunch of people upset that you're screwing over their kids or their grandparents, or they accidentally ran over a massive bill and now they need to mortgage their house or something ridiculous. I'm just obviously going for broke there, completely exaggerating. You get the idea though. In other words, they will feel that the games are inherently more fair, and that's the thing. Anyway, this has been a bit of a tangent. It was only originally supposed to be a fairly short opinion / news video, but I have a tendency to over talk, it seems. Yes. Anyway, I think that's about it for now. Hopefully you've enjoyed my somewhat rant, and I will see you soon. Take care. Bye for now.